Okay, let's take care of chapter 9. We were talking about development, and I wanted to show you this picture right here to start us off. Can you tell me what you see in this picture? Now, the reason I ask is because some people see some baby ducks, actually, they're baby geese, goslings, but then the individual over here, they see a monkey, they see a man, they see a woman, they see a Bigfoot, they see all kinds of things, an ape. The name of the person that you should see is Konrad Lorenz. And what Konrad Lorenz is demonstrating is something called imprinting. Lorenz was there right at the moment that those baby geese were hatching from their shells. And Mama Goose was put to the side. And so they saw him first and they imprinted onto him. So in this picture, they're following him into the water. And I want you to think about your own development. Who were you exposed to very early? What impact did they have on you in your development? We talked about objects before, Toy Story. Now we're talking about people. Can you tell me who this individual is? And what is he doing? Well, he's telling those kids, yes, I am your father. No, that's Darth Vader. He's telling those kids, hey, if you sniff this glue here, like my friend Tommy. No. This is Jean Piaget. And Jean Piaget, if you recall, was that young lad representing the cognitive perspective. The young lad who saw the albino sparrow, wrote a paper, got published at the age of 9, and went on to get his doctorate in zoology at age 21. I didn't even start college till I was 21. This guy's already done. But he goes on to make a huge impact in child development, adolescent development, human development, right? In the field of psychology. Because he argues that children, when they try to solve problems, go through stages of thinking. And so thus, he argues that kids start off very basic. If you notice the sensory motor stage, they use their senses to make determinations. Early on, they don't have stranger anxiety, but they soon develop it. They eventually develop object permanence, out of sight, still in mind. You can try this with your pets. See if you take something away and hide it, if they still know it exists, right? By pre-operational, from ages 2 to 6, kids are starting to think in different ways, but they're not able to think logically. So Piaget would say you're spinning your wheels if you're trying to get Tommy to eat his spinach first, then he can have ice cream, because Tommy will say, I want ice cream. He's not even going to think about it. The kids are also very egocentric during this time. Everything's about them. Right? We see people even to this day that seems like they're stuck in the pre-operational stage. By concrete operational, now we're able to understand logic, and this is very handy when it comes to math classes, right? And then we reach our highest level, which is formal operational. We're able to understand all kinds of higher reasoning with our thinking ability. So Piaget, if you recall, his theory was reviewed by Albert Einstein. We know who he is. And he said, this theory is so simple that only a genius could have thought it up, which is quite a compliment. Here we see a review in images. We've got sensory motor, kids playing with some onion rings in a Carl's Jr. We've got the pre-operational, kid using the power of pretend, maybe goes on to be a doctor. We've got this kid using the concrete operational stage. The kid saying, how much has more tequila in it? And of course, that's conservation, right? Quantity remains constant. And then finally, the formal operational stage where they're going into higher reasoning. Right? Now, one fellow had a little different perspective, and here's the person right here. His name is Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky. And he argued kids think, and they develop their thinking by what he called the zone of proximal development. And some of you experience this in school. You got one kid who sort of knows how to do the work, the other kids don't. That kid shows that kid and then has them do it themselves, right? Because of the zone of proximal development. So you see a little comparison of Vygotsky's and Piaget. And, you know, apprenticeship programs, mentoring programs, that's all Vygotsky. Have people show you how to do it, and then you can do it. Now, the case study I wanted to talk about today is the person that's in this image, Eric, son of Eric. And the question often arises when I show this image is, which one is Eric? Well, Eric is the one lower in the blue, and that's his spouse, his lovely wife. Further proof that the more time you spend with somebody, the more you start to morph into that person. Tell the truth. Some of you have been in long-term relationships, 2 weeks, and you start morphing into each other over time. So, a little background information about Eric, son of Eric. Eric Erickson, that's not his real last name, original last name, I should say. He was born out of wedlock. Actually, his mother was married but estranged from his dad, and we don't really know who the father is, but she had an affair with that person, and we believe that that person really didn't want to have much to do with her, or she moved out of shame of having a baby out of wedlock. And so she eventually met a doctor, and the doctor married her with her new child and adopted Eric, and he became Eric Hamburger, right? And so young Eric was interested in being an artist, was traveling throughout Europe doing his art, and he runs into somebody named Anna Freud. Now, who's Anna Freud? It is none other than Sigmund Freud's daughter. So he meets Sigmund Freud, and his life changes. And so he believes, like Freud believes, that things that happen to us early in our development can alter how we ultimately become. So he develops what he calls the psychosocial stages of development. And what he lists here, all the way from trust versus mistrust on, is a series of crises and how things start to happen to us over time. And that changes who we are. Taking, for example, trust versus mistrust. If you're a baby and you don't get the care that you should get as a baby, you develop mistrust, and that stays with you. All the way to the final stage, which is integrity versus despair, when you have our grandparents perhaps being very bitter about their backgrounds, saying things, if only, I should have, versus those grandparents who we learn so much from, are so positive, who say things that they wouldn't change anything about their lives. Even the bad stuff. Because, as you know the expression, what doesn't kill us makes us a zombie. Okay, I never was good at expressions. So, how did he become Eric Hamburger to Eric Erickson? Well, when he moves to the United States, keep in mind, he doesn't even have a bachelor's degree. He eventually gets jobs teaching at very prestigious universities, right, including Yale and Harvard. And he has kids with his wife, and he doesn't want them being teased to be called Hamburger. And plus, it's around the wartime, and that's why he immigrated to the United States. And it's not cool having a German last name at that time. So he changes his name to Eric, son of Eric, Eric Erickson. So, incredible immigrant story. We forget, with the exception of our native people, that we're a country of immigrants. Right? How's your morals? Lawrence Kohlberg says your morality develops very basic, black and white, and I like the way he puts this. He calls them pre-conventional, right? If our friends do it, we'll do it, And your mom got mad about that because she said, if your friends jumped off the edge of the cliff, would you? And you're like, yeah. And then she got more mad, right? And then we get into the conventional where we, as teenagers, we start to really care about, initially it was just, we'll do it if we can get away with it. And then as teenagers, we care about our peers, right? That's why you wore those funky shoes and you never wore them again because your friends all laughed at you. And finally, post-conventional. We go from pre, con, and post-conventional, where your morality is set in stone. And that's why you get people who are in these talk shows and they're yelling at each other and they can't agree on anything because they're probably in the post-conventional stage of morality. Now, I want to share a product with you folks. A little heads up, I don't have any investment in this. It's called the Chatter Translator, and it's supposedly to help in relationships, because sometimes fellas get into a relationship with men or women, and they ask a question and they don't come up with the right answer. For example, do I look fat? Now, how are you supposed to answer that? Well, yeah, shouldn't you be in San Diego, Shamu, and so forth? No. Do I look fat? Correct answer according to this machine, absolutely not. If anything, you look skinnier. If that's even possible. That's beautiful. Sometimes your partner catches a wandering eye. Is that girl pretty? What are you supposed to say? Yeah, can we trade? No. Correct response is her. She's okay, I guess, but she's nothing like you. Beautiful. Now this one I've heard myself and it makes me nervous. If I died, would you get remarried? What am I supposed to say? Yeah, as soon as you're in the ground, I'll be with my new person dancing on your grave. No. If I died, would you get remarried? Correct response is, that's impossible to answer. I can't imagine living without you. Oh, that's good stuff. The Chatter Translator. Check into it. It may save you. It may save your development. Now, for some answers. What should I have you focus on for exam 3? Well, the first one is I want you to be able to tell the toy story that I told. Be sure to include information about your special item too. But tell in detail what was the toy story I told. And the second part of that is, why are some objects important to people's development? Now, you know the reason for mine, but feel free to add more. Second question, of course, deals with Eric, son of Eric. I want you to tell me everything you know about this man and everything you know about his theory. And of course, I believe his early experiences really helped develop his theory. Because as a young man, he grew up in the Jewish faith and traditions, but yet his father, who might have been Danish, gave him the attributes of being tall and blonde and blue-eyed. And so when he went to school, the Jewish kids didn't want to play with him because he looked like a German. And the German kids didn't want to play with him because he was a Jew. And he didn't quite fit in. A crisis. Voila. We've got the psychosocial stages coming out later in life. Things that happen to you can affect you dramatically. Even Erickson recognized that even his last name could have some negative consequences to his own children. So he re-identifies who he is. Yeah. Okay, that's it for Chapter 9. I appreciate your attention. Can't wait to talk about Chapter 10.